that has gone into this, but we don't look to see whether they're commercially viable. We don't look to see whether there's any way of rewarding our children by giving them some way of promoting and continuing that quest that they have for innovation. We just cast them aside, and every year we do the same thing. Our education system, as has been said by many, particularly Mary-Louise Felix, it must promote and must encourage curiosity, scientific inquiry, and challenging of the status quo. It is not doing that right now. So we can't have an innovative culture if at the school level we're not promoting innovation. But it's not just our children. Our elders also have an important role to play. They possess valuable information and experience, and we really must make greater use of indigenous and traditional knowledge. What we dismiss as folklore is actually the accumulation of generations of observation, of cause and effect data in several different environmental conditions by hundreds of informal researchers specific to our unique local conditions. You can't get more rigorous empirical observation than that, but we dismiss it as just folklore. But these things are things that our ancestors have looked at, and they've realized that there is a cause and effect. Why aren't we using it? We must free up access to information and data. I think many people, including Dr. Nils, spoke about access to data and managing data. Access to knowledge and information is a critical factor for the development of our society. We're not doing that. We're not making it available. Our governments must also recognize and value our natural assets. I was very pleased to hear how passionately Ricky spoke on this. Something simple like the featherless. Our featherless snake, the symptoms of a bite from the featherless resemble symptoms of some major forms of heart disease, and it may provide a model for future treatments. But that's not unprecedented. The first ACE inhibitor, which is used to treat hypertension, actually came from the venom from a Brazilian pit viper, which is a Bothrops species, same like our Bothrops caribeus, which is the St. Lucian featherless, but we're not doing any research into this. Deadly toxins to life-saving therapeutics, many have been gotten from vipers like ours. And if you look at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo, you'll see that the venom from our featherless is being sold at $250 per gram. It's actually one of the most expensive products you could buy from the Kentucky Reptile Zoo, but we haven't patented it. We're not, if any drugs like captopril, which is the ACE inhibitor that was gotten from the Brazilian viper, if anything like that comes out, St. Lucia will get no benefit from it whatsoever. These are things that we need to be looking into. You go to Whole Foods or Holland and Barrett in the UK, and what products do you see there? Bitter lemon, bitter melon, kokum kuli, turmeric, chichima, ginger, graviola leaf tea from soursop, which is supposed to be a strong anti-carcinogen. And the nutraceuticals market is forecast to record yearly growth of over 8% per year, but we're not taking advantage of that. These are all products that we have in St. Lucia: Japana, Veven Lachiewat, Gwenaba Fay, all of these things, no real research to see how we can commercialize them. Our banana industry has come from this. But when you go again into Whole Foods, this is what you see: all sorts of banana products, but yet we say we don't have a market for our bananas. Are we focusing on the right things? Are we introducing innovation? These are the things that we have to look at. We really have to provide consistent support to our innovators. We heard from Carlos and Laura today. Carlos and Laura, there's Joannan, there's Gillan, Chadia, Laura. So many have done really good work, but are we saying to our hotels that they must buy Carlos's Life Cube and put it in there? Because every single one of these hotels have problems with water availability. So are we encouraging the hotels to buy the Life Cube and put it in there so that they can solve their water problems? We're not. We have to invest heavily in our youth. I heard a lot of talk about having a research institute, but 4 years ago, I gave the feature address at the launch of the Vaughan Allen Lewis Institute for Research and Innovation. That was supposed to be the institute that would promote research and innovation in our country. What has happened to Valeri? Why isn't Valeri being that place where we collect all of that information, serve as a repository for all of the innovation, as Giles said, from farm to field, from dance hall to dojo, everything that people are doing, and see how we can turn that into commercial opportunity for us to improve on our socioeconomic profile. We're not doing that. We have an institute. Let's use it. Why don't we provide fellowships for promising young and budding innovators to be at Valeri, to focus exclusively on creating, innovating, without having to worry about where the next paycheck comes from? These are some of the things that I think we can do. Walt Disney said it very, very clearly. If you can dream it, you can do it. And I think this era that we're living in is showing very clearly. Research and innovation will help us to get out of the low growth, high debt, high unemployment, low wage trap we're in. Nothing else will do it. There is no model, no economic model that we are pursuing right now that will do it. Could be tourism. Nothing will do it because we've seen whether it has landed us. We have to focus on research and innovation. And it will also help us to address some of the persistent vexing problems, stimulate our economy, create jobs, and have that balanced development we're talking about. We're living in a global knowledge economy where neurons, what causes our brains to communicate our nerve fibers to fire, neurons are much more valuable than euros. And I think when we realize that and we understand that investing in our people is the most important investment we can make, then maybe we'll get out of this problem that we're in. Thank you very much.
A splendid reminder there from Dr. Jimmy Fletcher. And I think earlier we had heard from Dr. Cato, and he was saying, difficult, yes. Impossible, no. So maybe this is the time for us to rethink. Well, we move on to another section right now, and we are looking to hear from Dr. Whitney Henry, and we will meet him via Zoom from MIT, Cambridge in Boston.
Okay. Oh boy. Can you guys hear me?
And we've just seen your presentation on the screen. So Dr. Whitney Henry, please go ahead.
Sure. So first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for this incredible opportunity. To be quite honest, it has been really inspiring to see some of these presentations, and I am really excited and hopeful about the future of St. Lucia. So for those of you who do not know me, I am currently a postdoctoral research scientist at the Whitehead Institute for Biomedical Research, which is an affiliate of MIT, which is located in Cambridge, in Massachusetts, in the US. And my research largely focuses on identifying and understanding the complex biological processes that occur within cancer cells that allows them to gain the capabilities to become resistant to both chemo and immune therapies, as well as to gain properties that allow them to metastasize, which is to disseminate from the primary site where the tumor forms, for example, the breast, to distant organs like the brain and the lung and bone and so on. So what are those processes or dependencies of cancer cells? With the hopes that by understanding those fundamental processes, one might be able to extrapolate that information to inform more efficacious strategies for the treatment of this disease. And to do this, I actually use a very multidisciplinary approach. It involves very sophisticated molecular tools, advanced gene editing techniques like CRISPR-Cas9, which some of you may have known, may have heard of. I also work with extremely talented and smart people in the fields of both bioengineering, computer science, and in some cases, physician scientists. So right now, science is kind of moving into this collaborative mode, I would say, not only within academia, but between academia and the biotech, pharma, tech industry. So it's really an exciting time to be part of research, especially in the context of cancer biology. Now, in keeping with the theme and the mandate that was given to me by Mr. Romulus, I wanted to now shift gears a little and really tell you about my scientific journey and experience. And I'm hoping that for the young people, especially who are listening and watching, that this will inspire you and hopefully get you to think a little bit more about what research might entail and what a career in this area might look like. So I entitled my presentation Against All Odds, and I hope, and maybe at the end of this presentation, it'll become a little clear to you why. So it all began in the town of Beaufort, where I was born, and I came from very humble circumstances, was adopted and brought up by the Burt family. For 7 years, I traveled from Beaufort to Castries to attend the St. Joseph's Convent Secondary School, followed by the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. I then taught high school for about 1 year, a little bit I spent some time at SJC as well as at the Meekwood Secondary School. After which I was very fortunate to earn a full academic scholarship to attend Grambling State University to pursue my bachelor's in biology with a minor in chemistry, with the goal of continuing along a more traditional medical career track. So I was contemplating whether I should become a medical doctor or a dentist. That was the goal, because this was really what I thought of when I considered the career options for someone who was formally trained in biology and chemistry. But it so happened that in college, I got the opportunity to participate in two transformative research experiences. One was at Purdue University in Indiana, and the second was at the University of Texas in Dallas. And really, these experiences allowed me to gain firsthand knowledge of what research entailed, what the lifestyle was like, and how exciting it was to be part of the discovery process, the creation of knowledge. It wasn't simply about regurgitating something from the textbook. In fact, I felt like the textbook had come to life, and it was really empowering to be in that space. What this taught me, one was that had I not been exposed to research, I would not have known that it was something that I could do and that I would enjoy doing. These experiences also highlighted the challenges associated with research. And one of the things that I'm very careful about was not painting this rosy picture about what a research career or what research really entails. It can be very challenging. There may be long periods where one can experience a lot of quote unquote failures and setbacks. There is a lot of delayed gratification in the process. And so one must have an attitude of focus and determination in order to succeed, and some level of luck, I would say. So fast forward, at the end of college, I actually changed my plans and decided to pursue my graduate studies, and went on to pursue my doctoral degree in biomedical sciences. Uh, Reluctantly, almost, I would say, I accepted an offer from Harvard to gain my PhD. And I say reluctantly because I was in some ways very insecure and apprehensive about kind of forging into this new unknown territory. I was transitioning from a small liberal arts college that's a historically Black college and university in northern Louisiana to a predominantly white elite Ivy League school in New England. And with that came many challenges, both intellectually, but more so psychologically. But as with many things in my life, I overcome that after undergoing a very steep learning curve, and by all metrics was successful in that endeavor. This has now this has now placed me in, I think, one of the best opportunities that a researcher could ask for, and that is working and being trained in one of the best cancer research labs in the world. And that is in the lab of Bob Weinberg. Looking back, I can say that I am incredibly grateful for the life-changing opportunities that have come my way. But two things I want to underscore to this audience and to the young people listening. One is the importance of exposure. So I came in and entered the US system and so on with one idea of what what one can do with training in biology and chemistry and so on. But it wasn't until I was exposed to this new area of research that I realized that this was something that I loved and I was passionate about and that I am good at. The second is the importance of having the right preparation to meet the opportunities as they present themselves. So here is just me, first have on the right is my very first internship in a dental office in St. Lucia. And the second is me now working in a biomedical research lab at the Whitehead Institute. Here I'm showing my transition from Grambling to Harvard. And here is me as a new, I think of myself as someone who has evolved in my way of thinking and how I approach problems. And when I started to think about some of the themes that some of those speakers brought up, there are several that also came to mind, but I want to reinforce the idea of changing our perception of who is a researcher and an innovator. Most students think of a researcher or innovator as someone who is boring, who is not a creative, who is confined to just a small space or a computer or in a lab by themselves. And that is far from the truth. There is a lot of creativity involved in research. And the second, I think, is the importance of parents and educators in fostering curiosity, which is a theme that I think many speakers highlighted, but it's so important. Kids are natural innovators. If you put a kid in a kitchen with just normal appliances, you will be intrigued by what they can come up with. And so I think this is something that we shouldn't just dampen. We should encourage it. And secondly, is I think it's not too early to expose kids to the research methodology because they do it. They look around the environment and they ask questions, but it's up to us to, I think, take it to the next level and to further develop those by asking them how to formalize their observations, how to ask the questions, how to test it, and how to communicate that back to maybe the parents or to the wider community. And finally, I think it's also important to incorporate real-world applications of research and innovation. And it doesn't have to be specifically to the pure sciences. It could be social sciences and so on. And the last thing on a personal note is the idea that maybe we should rethink our metrics of success back home. It's not always about straight A's and top grades. And sometimes what that leads to is students being afraid to fail, quote unquote. And that is, being able to be risk takers and to push the boundary of knowledge is something that is so critical for innovation. And with that, I will end. And thank you again for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Whitney Henry. We have our next speaker, Mr. Laurent Jean-Pierre. He's an ethnobotanist, very passionate about his work and dedicated to sharing the information that he has with all of us.
Bon après-midi tout le monde, good afternoon, and greetings and salutations from the world of academia, science and technology. I happen to be a scientist, it's my life work, but I took a three-pronged approach to it, the social sciences, the hard sciences, and also religion. So I married the three of them on the undergraduate level. I've said all of that to say that life has two movements. And sometimes they're opposites, but you need both of them for movement. In every sense, you need to marry the two in order to get good results. C'est comme on a toujours dit, balier neuf, cabalier net, mais vieux balier connaît ses coins. New brooms sweep clean, but old brooms know the corners So we need to marry things in order for us to come to a solid conclusion. In fact, God said it many years. He says, life in its truth seldom lies in the opposing forces, but in the reconciliation of the two, when you bring the two forces together. Now, I've said all of that to say that my work has been marrying traditional knowledge and conventional knowledge. That is the bedrock of my research. Looking at what's within our traditions, what we have, what belongs to us, and researching it. And that is what I want to encourage you this afternoon in terms of the what you call the topic on the discussion, the discourse that we are having with ourselves. And it's something we call in academia roots redux. You go back to go forward. You look at what you have, what is in your immediate presence, so that you could interrogate it, you could study it, and then you could move into a new direction. So I want to present some of my research in terms of the Jardin Creole, medicinal plants, looking at what we have growing in our backyards, how we solve our problems in terms of food security, food sovereignty, and food safety, based on the body of knowledge that we have at hand. Like Giles said earlier, what we got from our ancestors, what was in the savannah, the fishing techniques that we cannot just throw away. They're part of our body of knowledge that we should interrogate and glean from it. We talk about science fair. I've been doing science fair from the beginning of science fair. You know, with the schools, extracting essential oils. It is science. How to make coconut oil, how to make castor oil. This is science. You know, and our grandparents did it. I used to go make furring with my grandmother to transform a root crop that is toxic. If you eat it in its raw state, it has cyanide, but to transform it from this toxicity into something that is edible and that is good for us. It prevents colon cancer. In some societies, they've done research and found there was very little colon cancer, in fact, none at all in some part of Africa. And the researchers found that because of, among other things, the diet of cassava. And by the way, cassava is a marvelous plant. It grows in all kinds of conditions. It's a drought-resistant, salt-resistant. And that was a gift to us from our Kari brothers and sisters, or our Karinago or indigenous people. They were handed down to us, and we have mastered the art of extracting the toxicity and giving us food that can be stored. Ça can live en terre sec. It can live in n'importe côté. Il pas besoin de l'eau. It's salt resistant, drought resistant, as I've said before. So I could go on and on, but what I want to promote there is the concept of the Jardin Creole. The Jardin Creole is the garden that we have around the house. It is based on its composition and its position, where you put things and where it is established. And that is good in the event of, or in this current climate of COVID-19 and the climate of climate change. I think we need to rethink and look again at what we have as a people and research it and build on it. And there are several things. I could go for several examples. As a matter of fact, even our naming of our plants. I'm a taxonomist. I'm a plant researcher. I identify plants and name them based on two models. The Linnaeus model of taxonomy. But I also use our traditional model. And you might, when you do deep research, you find we have a binomial system of taxonomy in our own Creole taxonomy. This is bois d'orange. A binomial system. It's the bois and the d'orange. D'orange means it's orange. It produces a dye. So we are saying something when we speak of our plants. And the scientific naming of plants as well. So it's the balance. We need that balance in research. And that is what I come here to talk about. The broom, clean, new, balance. Let us find that health, like Tagore says, is truth never lies in the opposing forces, but in the reconciliation of the two. In balancing the research methodologies and using all that we have. Sometimes we abandon our traditional knowledge and we go and flirt with conventional knowledge. I am saying let us marry the two. Marry the two to get to reach closer to what we are doing. Especially in this area, let me just read very quickly the importance of the Jardin Creole and endangered ethnobotanical knowledge in a post-COVID-19 world and for mitigation and adaptation to climate change. With the current COVID-19 pandemic and predicted climate uncertainty, there is a growing international concern for safe food and medicine, food safety, sovereignty, local livelihoods, and sustainability. We need to marry all of these together. You cannot have food and it's not sustainable, as you rightly said about the pot de clone in Martinique. We had a lot of bananas, but we paid a heavy price of cancer in Martinique and perhaps a lot of the people that are dying here. So we need again to find that healthy equilibrium. Yes, we need to produce food. We need to find methods of doing it, but we need to do it sustainably. Now more than ever, it has been necessary to prepare and to feed and to self-medicate an increasing world population, which according to the 2019 UN population, it says that we have 7.7 billion people on the planet, and will be 9.7 billion by 2050. We need to feed ourselves. How do we do that? Survival is a triumph of stubbornness. C'est pour entêter pour nous rester vivants. And how do we do that? We need to go back to the knowledge of the ancestors, the traditional knowledge. As Jimmy rightly said, making coconut oil is science, that's deep science. So we need to look at what we have and build on it. Use both wings of, as Giles always used to say, both wings of the bird to fly. And Giles had something, and this is a bird I have a lot of respect for. We have our tensions and we have our debates because that's what part of life is all about. But for his what I call his scientific rigor, when you work with Giles, you become a better person because he interrogates your work. And that's what we need to do. Look at what we have and interrogate it. Study it. Turn it around. Tunevi way. Shavi way. Viegade. Our fishing methods. Our agricultural methods. And we have something called the Jardin Creole, and I think we should go back and look at it, the composition of it. Where you put your medicinal plants, especially in this COVID-19 period, where you are locked down. Unipuni manger. Unipuni we may self-medicate. And that is why I'm proposing that every hospital in St. Lucia should have a medicinal garden. And that medicinal garden would be connected to the doctor's computers with scientific name and scientific data. So that when the little Mali become doctor, medical service, go popon, ebe fei kosol, you could just put in your computer, you have the garden there, you authenticate that this plant is what the lady is talking about. We doctors in some medical service. You go on your computer, you open it up, there's all the botanical data, there's all the biochemistry of the plant. So the doctor can now better administer onto that patient. This is something we can do. The data is already there. 40 years of my life, we've been looking at medicinal plants with a group called Tramil around the Caribbean with scientific rigor. Doctors, biochemists, botanists, because even if you have all the good data in terms of the chemistry and you do not know the name of the plant, you do not know what you are researching, your research is null and void. You need to know what you're researching. So in a nutshell, brothers and sisters, because a lot of people got to have so much to say, but I just want us to bring us back to our tangible and intangible heritage. What we've been handed down to us by our ancestors, to revisit it, the language. In the language, there's lots of wisdom and a lot of material in our language. Don't underestimate the Creole language. In fact, where David says, or is it Fanon, that the language carries the weight of the culture. So without language, that important Creole language, there is a lot in it. So we need to look in introspect, we need to look in retrospect, so that we could go in prospect, so that we could see the prospects that are ahead. As I said, the landscape, the language, the landscape, the land, the seascape. So it's about the biosphere and the ethnosphere. So when you marry these two spheres, then you have results. You see, the biosphere is what's out there naturally, but the ethnosphere is the body of knowledge that you extract or you impose on the biosphere, or you glean from, for your own, our entertainment, our enjoyment, but most importantly, our survival. That's what it's about. It's about survival. How do we protect that body of knowledge, improve on it, and leave it in a better condition than we inherited it for the next generation? So, Punka Savla, get the technology, extract the toxic substance, the cyanide, and make it available for the next generation, so that it's a little easier, and so many other things. The person who got the Nobel Prize in China for malaria, she went back into the archives and dig deep and found something in the archives, and she went into the labs with it and became a Nobel laureate. We have it in the minds of our people, in our language, a lot of information that we could mine, we could glean, and go back to the laboratory, do our biochemistry and our research, so that we could come with a whole lot of new things. Even in the World War II, we were using something called Exostema Santa Lucia. It's a plant that is endemic to Central. By endemism, I mean it's found nowhere else in the world. And we were already extracting, it's called cinchona in English. We were already extracting a substance from it to treat malaria. And the truth of the matter, it was wartime. Ships couldn't bring medicine, so we had to use what's indigenous. COVID-19, hey, when we were locked in, you cannot go out, you cannot do what. So you had to, the lockdowns, you could have feed from your Jardin Creole. With all your medicine around, you know, all your food around, you can pas fig par là, you can head des cheddar chine par là, you can faire ça pour manger, pour faire un bouillon par là. That is what it's about, survival. Survival and knowledge. And as you balance that knowledge, we can survive in our civilization. So let me just, for example, in Haiti, as an anthropologist, demystified the zombieism. What they take a more, you can call to a zombie. It was the fish of a certain, the bone of a certain fish that was used in the concoction to put them in the heartbeat was so low that you couldn't measure it with your what's the instrument the doctors use, the thermometer or whatever they call it. What is it? Yes, so I am saying, when you take all of this thing and you put it together, you realize that we have a lot of knowledge, a body of knowledge, and the anthropologists found out that you go so, your heartbeat lowers so much, it's like you're dead. And after a while, when it wears out, you can come back alive. And it was Wade Davis who demystified that. He worked in the Amazon as an anthropologist and in Haiti to find out. So that biocultural heritage, people, we need to guard it for our life, and I'm glad we're doing that. Our wild plants, our local community, the indigenous people and their knowledge, they know about weather. You could determine weather by the changing of the leaves and so forth, the taxonomy. As I said, we now have a Caribbean pharmacopoeia that we've been studying for 40 years. Leaf baths, let's research these things. When you're a child, you take a BOAP. Go back to it, take it to the laboratory and authenticate it. And I could give you so many. Local dyes. We don't do local dyes anymore. There's a whole industry out there with local dyes. You know, Ruku and Bois d'Orange and Campeche. Campeche is not only for baking bread, you know. It was planted as a red dye. It can give you a dye, Hamatoxylum, it is called. And so many, Chinitwef. Who's doing work on Chinitwef? You know? Or something, if you're poisoned and you drink it, it take off the bile and make you vomit it. I am a living experience of that. When I was a child, I was dying one Christmas day. I couldn't eat malade. They give me a little shot of Chinitwef. I just vomit fiella. And right away, it was like yellow, like a mango, a ripe mango. And in a little while, I was up and about dancing and enjoying myself. So brothers and sisters, I have a lot to say, but that's not the time because a lot of more people got to speak. But let us feed off the past in order to face the future. And as Derek rightly puts it, he says, break a vase, and the love that it takes to reassemble the fragments is greater than the love that took the symmetry for granted when it was whole. I thank you.
Dr. Jean-Pierre, thank you very much. Krista Henry, she's on Zoom with us. Krista?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Are you there? The student of this Arthur Lewis Community College.
Yeah. My name is Krista Henry. I am a second-year student at Arthur Lewis Community College. I am currently studying the field of environmental science, and today my question is on the youth. Like everybody talking about the health sector, fisheries and all, but mine is about the youth. And my question is, what are the plans or ideas do the research and innovation organization have in place to encourage and persuade young adults like myself to participate in events or meetings held by the organization? And what I suggest, like a way to start to encourage young adults is by doing a survey to find out the reasons for why young adults are not interested or taking part or doing voluntary work to help with sustainable development of the country. And the reason I said this will build a foundation on how we approach the situation and what are the steps in doing so. So whilst I was thinking about it, I came about I think I have 5 points why I think teenager or young adults like myself do not take part in things like that. And one is peer pressure. I think a lot of young adults or students try to fit in, and when they feel like they're standing out, like they cannot take on the attention or all eyes on them. So I think they try to feel comfortable, and that's why they keep on staying in the same group. And my other point is fast money. A reason why young adults don't do any volunteer to do anything, they want money. So they want to get paid for what they're doing. And it same with adults like over 30, or everybody want to be paid. And I think experience is way better than just getting paid. So I think we should just be open about it and approach the situation with an open mind. One is lifestyle, and I think it has to do with the children being exposed to the American life. They think everything is good and things like that, so they do not want to try. One is support, and the reason why I say support, a lot of young adults have ideas and stuff, but they do not have the support. They do not have people to encourage them to do the necessary things. So like my example is it have to do with me at primary school when my teacher Miss Edwards and some of the students, we came up with an idea of having a straw that can filter the water so people can drink. Like they can use the places like Haiti that do not have good water system or source. And it like we planned it, but we didn't have the resources to develop that idea. And recently I was just on social media and I saw that a company came up with that idea and they're making money off it. And I was like, oh, if we had the support, if we had the resource to do that, we could have been the first to invent that straw. And it have to do a lot with the parents too. Some parents, I understand you want your child to be the best, but some of them they I would say like they do not encourage the child. They always have something bad to say about them. So if they have a good idea or plan, like they always, oh, that you want to do, that's what you want to put yourself into, like help, just give them that little motivation to do it. And I find that a lot of us, we can achieve great things if the parents, the school too, like every child have a different purpose, and we're trying to teach one set of thing. So we want all the okay, medicine, lawyer, or something like that. Like everybody have a different purpose. So make the children branch out and try something new instead of keeping them in the same box all the time. And I find that if we just give support and keep on exposing the students or other young adults like myself, we'll have a better chance in achieving more. And I one point that's my last point is some of us, we just lazy. We want everything to come to us. We do not want to try. We do not want to um reach out to hands. Some of the us, we feel like asking people for help is begging, and I don't know if that's true, but you need help. You can't do everything on your own. So I find some people, young adults like myself, we just lazy and we just want everything to come our way, and we're not trying. Even though we have the idea, we say, me now do that and things like that. So I find that if we have the support and we ourselves just do not be afraid to feel like we'll achieve greatness. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just hoping that you would be inspired by some of the stories, success stories we heard from our luminaries, for us to continue on that path of your own success. Next is Miss Diana Thomas. I don't think she is with us. So we'll call on Mr. Camuel Jean-Baptiste, and he will speak about agriculture.
Good day, everyone. Let me take the opportunity to adopt the protocol that has been established and to thank the organizers for this opportunity to speak to the gathering on the area of agriculture with a twist on extension. The day has been long and a lot has been said. And while I sat there, it is easy to see that there is a lot of bleeding of the ideas, and there's a lot of cross-cutting issues that we have been speaking about. But by way of starting the conversation today, I'm always reminded of a conversation that Dr. David Dolly at St. Augustine, Trinidad, when he told his parents that he wanted to do a PhD in agricultural extension. He always says his father asked him, what is a PhD in agricultural extension? And essentially, he says that the question was asked because they didn't understand the field of his work and his endeavor. And so I just want to inform our audience that agricultural extension essentially is education for adults in the agricultural sector, simply put. And the interesting thing about agricultural extension as it relates to innovation is part of perhaps a three-prong diagram, if you put it that way, where you have the farmer involved, the researcher involved, and the extension is essentially the broker that helps to broker the information between farmers and researchers. We come from a background where sometimes the research agenda is set, and you have instances where the researcher feels, I need to go out there and let the farmer know what they need to do to correct their problems, to solve their problems, to correct the mistakes that they're making. But the farmer has been at the field level and been involved in his craft for all these years, or her craft for all these years. And so there has to be respect for indigenous knowledge, and you heard some of our colleagues speak about it early on. And so what we do in extension essentially is to integrate that whole relationship between what happens at the field level in terms of those involved in actual production and so on, and those persons who are seeking to improve what it is that is being done. Essentially, the work of extension is focused on influencing knowledge, attitudes, and practice. And you would have heard some of our earlier speakers mention the whole issue of knowledge, attitude, and practice. Knowledge, indigenous knowledge is there. We see emerging experiences of those who spend time in laboratories. Climate change comes in with its own challenges, pest and disease, and having to deal with those and having to adapt. And so while the producers and processors are heading in one direction and are being faced with those challenges, and they have their own ideas as to how they're going to solve these difficulties, the researcher is also there to provide support. And so what agricultural extension seeks to do is to get researchers and farmers involved in what we call participatory rural experiences. We go into those rural areas and we use what we call participatory rural appraisal, where you get both researchers, extensionists, and producers involved in an interactive process where we seek to identify what are called felt needs. Those producers, those processors, those livestock rearers, what do they feel are their own needs and challenges? And in the process, draw to their attention what is generally referred to as unfelt needs, and using participatory approaches to engage all the players in a process where we identify solutions that are amenable to everyone in the process. One of the things that agricultural extension is challenged with, and also farmers, is often you find that sometimes researchers come in and they're the rural tourists. We spend a little time, we gather some basic information, we formulate solutions, and we want to feed it back. But very often these fed back solutions are not necessarily readily adapted. And if you read the story about the humble potato in the Peruvian Heights, you'll see how that process went through over time. And so it is really important here that we allow the knowledge users, the knowledge generators to interact at a place where there is opportunity for development of ideas and solutions. Some of you might have heard what is referred to as farmer field school program. What these essentially seek to do is to use open fields or production or processing or trade, depending on what is being advocated, and allow learning, discovery-based learning, to take place in these environments. Knowledge, the attitudes also we seek to influence. It would interest you that a lot of the stuff that happens at the field level, a lot of it is historic. And sometimes the historic approaches that are there may not be the best suited. And so part of our responsibility is to ensure that we get in there and help producers and others to get those aha moments. These aha moments are moments when persons recognize that there is a better way. There is a new and improved way. And this is what we seek to do in terms of participatory approaches. For a producer and for the agriculture sector, there are opportunities for innovation at several levels. We have pre-production. These are the people who look to develop new breeds, new species, and so on. And some of you might have heard of the Green Revolution, of many decades ago, where we sought to develop new species and new hybrids of vegetables, of livestock, and so on. Then you have the production issues. You have issues related to irrigation, issues related to what sort of production environment am I going to use? Am I going to use the traditional soil? Am I going to use greenhousing? All of these present opportunities for innovative research. In fact, you have agencies like the international agencies like the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. More locally and regionally, we have the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture. And we also have our own Caribbean agency, the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Agency, CARDI. And what we seek to do is to ensure that we have access to these agencies, that the extensionists are able to interact with those agencies, share with them what the concerns of producers, smallholders are, and in anticipation that they will follow the same pattern of interactive research and development. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot do it alone. We require partnerships. And for us in Extension, we have international agencies such as the Global Forum for Rural Advisory Services, and more recently we have what is called the Caribbean Agricultural Extension Providers Network. And all of these networking and agencies are intended to help to bring the whole idea of operations at the field level, the research agenda, and the work of extension into a network environment where we could support each other in terms of what it is that we are looking for. There are issues related, for example, in terms of managing your pests and disease, integrated pest management, integrated plant nutrition. All these present exceptional and excellent opportunities for innovative ideas, for innovative ways of doing things. And so my closing here today is to say to our governments to ensure that we support regional agencies such as CARDI, to say to our international agencies to continue to provide avenues for our students to go into these environments, the universities in Taiwan, the universities in Central America, Cartier, Earth University, all these other areas, to allow our students the opportunities for exposure, as one of our earlier speakers mentioned, so that they could come back and help to strengthen and foster this whole research and innovation that we have been talking about here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to just applaud the organizers and to say to you that we are really excited, and I'm hoping that the extensionists today are viewing some of what we've been talking about and in a hope of broadening the mind in terms of what the possibilities are. With this, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baptiste. So very important in these COVID-19 times. We move on with another of our luminaries, and we are calling on Mr. Daisuke Nakarara, and he is going to be joining us from Washington State in the United States. You would have heard Mr. Romulus speak so excitedly about the cooperation that is in the works. Are you ready, sir? Doctor?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, yes, I'm ready. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd just like to share my screen with the quick presentation. You see my screen?
Yes, see.
Okay, great. I'm not sure which one you're seeing. Maybe this is wrong screen. Okay, this should be better. Hi, my name is Daisuke Nakahara. I am from Microsoft IoT sales team. Within IoT sales team, my responsibility is to work with the partners to build IoT solutions. So, even though I belong to IoT sales team, I'm still on the engineering side. I met with Giles about 6 months, almost a year ago, through UNDP, Yoko Watanabe, and we started a few pilot programs. And I just wanted to introduce what Microsoft is doing in this space and how technology can help people in St. Lucia. So last 3 to 5 years, IT industry or tech industry has been focusing on IoT. So on the left side of the this cycle adaptation life cycle, this is all technology companies, and we've been trying new technologies, new use cases, and how we can make people's life better, so forth. And now we are looking to see how this technology can enter into mainstream, meaning how IoT can benefit, people like average people can benefit from IoT and other technologies. In a world of IoT, it also includes, machine learning, AIs, and all the fancy word you hear these days. And those will, we hope, to help people. And in the past, if you look at the personal computing, today, a lot of people, they don't realize how much benefit people are getting from, PCs and smartphones, all the technologies. Like about 20, 25 years ago, when I started, Microsoft, people are surprised to see like ATM machines or running on Windows, for example. And those days, majority of people, especially senior people, didn't know how to use ATM machines. And they went to the bank, they, met the bank teller and get the cash or put the cash into their account. But now, after 20 years, people know how to use ATM machines. So that's, just one of the examples. But over time, technology, people will adopt new technologies. And on ourselves, like a technology industry, we have to make things easier to use for the average people. So in my Microsoft, our mission is to simplify IoT, meaning IoT is still very difficult. IoT is still for technology people. But we've been working on how we can make things easier and faster to deploy or use or implement. And making something easy and fast requires very powerful tools and platforms and infrastructure, and maybe even human resources and skill set, experience. Something easy is supported by foundation of something super powerful. So these are the things that we've been working on last few years through the my camera back on. Okay. Through the pilot programs, what we learned is, well, we kind of knew IoT was still too difficult, but now we realized this is almost impossible for average people to implement. We've been working with Laura and Kailis on smart pad, and we just recently had a conversation on honey firms, and we are hearing many interesting use cases. And another thing I realized through the conversation and the engagement with Giles is we as a tech company, we know how to make things happen, but we don't know how people want to use it. So it's been very good lessons for us, how technology can be used in, to support many different industries, fishing, farming, agriculture, conservation, sustainability, so many use cases. The we've been learning through Giles and his team on how technology can support the society. And at the same time, we also realized many use cases are very same from at least from technology point of view. Right? So, for example, the solution for the ocean is very similar, fundamentally very similar to a solution for agriculture, because everybody wants to see data and everybody wants to create the value from the data. And same, like 80% of times, same concept applies. Now, of course, people like to have a different, UIs and new tools and the different views, but those are some, minor customization we have to make. So through the UNDP and SGP projects, we've been focusing on, let's focus on 80% of something only technology and the experience people can work on, but we don't know how use cases are. So let's run from the people in the field, and let's make those 20% customization easy enough for people and students from St. Lucia, for example, because another challenge, one of the challenges in IoT is it's very difficult to find experienced engineers, especially in the remote areas. Even within Microsoft, we are very having a hard time, finding the right kind of people or right, engineers for the job. So, if you go to some non-tech locations, even within the United States, it's very difficult to find those people in some states and cities. So I can imagine, how difficult it is to find, IoT engineers in St. Lucia. But I'm pretty sure a lot of students, from St. Lucia, they probably know how to create a website, right? So our kind of mindset has shifted from how we can teach, people in St. Lucia how to use the IoT and the technology to support or help the society, to how we can contribute by focusing on what we are good at it and have local people to work on the customization people needs for their requirements and needs. So those are the experiments and the experience we had, and we had a couple projects, and we are in the halfway, but we are looking forward to see making a big progress in 2021. And last but not least, thank you very much for this opportunity to share time with the government, and having listening to people. It's very inspiring, and it would be my pleasure to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. Our speaker is Miss Catherine Seelys. Her area of interest is gender, but I think the society as a whole concerns her. So let's hear from Catherine Seelys, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are here for two reasons. We do have a project that we are doing to create employment for women and girls who are victims of gender-based violence. It is a project partly funded by UNDP, and it is an agro-processing facility where we were looking to create food products for sale and to create sustainable employment for women and girls. I think my task here today is to talk about gender. Where are we? Some time ago, the ILO released a report speaking about St. Lucia was among the top countries with women being in management. And at that time, I think all women who were in management put a feather in their cap and threw up their chests and said that we had arrived. Where are we? We are at a place where women have been managers of the social services for over 30 years. We have had a female attorney general, I think 2. We have had most of the senior public servants are female, judges in our courts, ministers and legislators, politicians, community leaders, etc., etc. But what have we achieved with regards to gender equality? There is still ambiguity and a lot of confusion around the age of consent for girls. We're not sure if it's 18 or if it is 16. Girls can be sexually active, but they cannot access birth control, go to the doctor on their own. They cannot vote. They cannot sign legally binding documents, but they can be sexually active. Women are still asked for their receipts to prove that they have contributed to assets in a relationship when they go to the family court to look for relief. Women who file for divorce are still victimized by both the system of justice and the laws administered by female judges in the courts. We have cases where the divorce had been final for at least 2 years, but the man had not held up his end of the bargain dictated by the court for child support and separation of assets. Rape of children is still being referred to as sex with minors in our criminal code and in court filings. And, but we have, as a country, a predominance of women in critical positions for the last 30 years. A rape trial is still like an inquisition during the witches' inquisition in the 1900s for a woman from disclosure to trial. And our women has not seen it fit to do something about it, but we are still senior managers in every aspect, be it in the public service or in the private sector. Where are we with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals? Goal number 1, poverty reduction. Goal number 2, zero hunger. Goal number 5, gender equality. Gender equality is a buzzword that we use when we want to get funding from international organizations and when we want to calm the nerves of international organizations that complains about gender equality, gender conforming, and things like that. Where are we when it comes to decent work and economic growth? SGD 8. We have women in St. Lucia who leave Beaufort, travel to Castries and work for $250 a fortnight. We have women who work with very prominent hotels and they call our organization for help with food. And I noticed during the week somebody posted a job receipt, a salary slip that said the person went home with $250. And everybody fell down on the person and said, well, how many hours did they work? Nobody pays that amount of money. They work for 12. Well, we have news. The hotels pay between $3.07 to $4.57 an hour. And there are women who work at the hotel every day, and they go home and they do not have food to eat. So I noticed that it was like a re-victimization of the person that were being underpaid, and not a question to the authorities like the Labor Department, the Ministry of Tourism, and the respective hotels that were involved. How might we look at innovation and we look at research to reduce domestic violence, to reduce sexual abuse of children? It is something that has been on the rise, specifically now that women have lost their jobs. We had over 18,000 women, 18,600 and something people who lost their job due to Corona. And out of this, 70% of them were women. We have how do we provide opportunities for vulnerable populations and communities, and specifically women and girls who have nowhere to go when they go to the social services? The same women who manage the social services are the same women who will not design a care plan to ensure their safety and security. But we continue to be very proud that the ILO has said that we are at the forefront when it comes to women managers. But we must ask ourselves the question, where are we with gender equality and the safety and security of our women and girls? And generally, how do we eliminate inequalities in St. Lucia? While COVID-19 has exposed a lot of our vulnerabilities, I have to say, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, that COVID-19 did not create our vulnerabilities. It simply exposed it, and how might we use the opportunity to do better and to use innovation and research to come out of this crisis a lot better. I noticed that even when it comes to submitting a document to the Ministry of Education to pay a bill of $250, you had to print it, sign it, and hand deliver it. They would not accept it over email because they don't accept scanned documents. We are still where we were in 1974 when I was still in Belvedere Primary School in Beaufort. Gender equality must be something that we aim to achieve, not something that we use conveniently when we think it is going to bear some fruit. We are at the time where we are still asking girls to behave like girls, but at the same time, we continue to ignore the very conventions and protocols that we sign at international meetings and say that we are right up there with the rest of the world. Today, we heard a number of people who have achieved things that we read and we attribute to people out of North America and Europe. And you know, it's exciting, but it's also sad at the same time, because here we sit in St. Lucia, cutting people leg and limb left and right when we have people who have the technology to save with a simple procedure. So while we speak of gender equality, we have not made any strides, as women are still at a great disadvantage within the system of justice, the system of legislation. And while women are very proud that they are senior managers, they are everything, they probably do have very big positions, but I always doubt that they have the power that comes with the position to create the change that is necessary so that we as St. Lucian can be proud of being women who has engineered change in our society. I thank you.
Catherine, I thank you very much for that presentation. We're moving on, Mr. Felix Herman, to speak on agriculture. He's not here. Dr. Gilbertha St. Rose, she'll join us via Zoom.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Protocols haven't been established. Yeah, I wish to thank especially Mr. Romulus for having me on here to share and participate. I enjoyed very much the presentations before, and it's good to hear, you know, all the updated things that are happening. It's very encouraging and gives me more reason to persevere. Yeah. And I was very happy to hear my colleague, Laura Jean-Pierre, you know, expounding, and we continue the passion and we continue to move forward. So today I am going to be speaking on this visioning sustainable futures, and I'll entitle it The Need for Integration with Eden Herbs Limited. Yeah, some of you know me. I'm a dermatologist, herbalist, and integrative healthcare specialist. Integrative is when conventional allopathic medicine is used together with traditional medicine, in this case, herbal medicine. So, and I'm also the managing director of Eden Herbs Limited. So today, hope you're hearing me well. Is everybody hearing me well? And see my screen? Hello? Is everybody hearing me and seeing my screen?
I can hear you, I can see you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'll continue. So the objectives of my presentation, keep it vibrant, keep it participatory and inclusive is the objectives of what I intend to do. And then the goals are to inform, educate, and to motivate for use. And I preempt that as I introduce a sustainable development project, trying to develop, well, wanting to develop an Eden Herbal family. And I just want to talk a bit of Eden Herbs. We have been producing in St. Lucia since 1996 by myself, registered in 99, exporting from 2001, and you can check us on the internet, edenherbs.com. And the products we produce are drinks, teas, creams, oils, capsules, and powders. And these are products used for common ailments, over the counter, and can be used with other medications. So we have a list of drinks here. I'll run through them because I know the time is short. Some of you must have seen them. Purify and Tonic, our traditional cooling, is the commonest one that we sell. And we have a range of capsules, a whole list here, and you can see it on the website, some more here. I just put the moringa on the screen because now in this time of COVID, everybody should be using moringa. And this is the capsules. We also have it in powdered form as well. This is what the tree looks like. And luckily we have it all over the place. The Indians had brought it here, and then some years ago, my friend and I, we started propagating, and thank God we have lots of moringa now. So it's nutrient-rich dietary supplements containing amino acids, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals. Very good for boosting up the immune system. So you can see it's quite a good product for our COVID climate. We also have the Animu Gully Roots, which is one of our teas. And I list it here because it's also good for boosting up the immune system. We have a whole list of creams. And I highlight one here, the citronella. A lot of you must know of lemongrass to prevent the insect bites. Now we're into the dengue season, and it's very good insect repellent. So that's our creams. And then we have oils. We have a neem oil. We have a sanitizing oil, also good for sanitizing surfaces and for diffusing in the environment. We also make a sanitizing lotion. So as I introduce the concepts of this project for the Eden Herbs family, the methodology I would like to inculcate is the fact that persons need to know themselves. So one knows themselves in terms of their needs, take responsibility for one's health. Don't be too dependent on the system, and becoming and remaining knowledgeable on health issues. So one needs to become and remain motivated, become and remain empowered, and become and remain disciplined in that venture. It's an everyday event. So in doing the above, we do it at the family level where we can share experiences with one another. We can plan together, we can cook together, eat together. And as we do these things, we get to learn our herbs and foods. At the community level, we can share seeds, planting materials, supplies, produce, and we can market together and the concept of the community gardens. We can have educational seminars and workshops and invite and participate in community activities all around herbs and food. And of course, the cooking and eating sessions. persons always like the cooking and eating, and maintaining good health is a good objective of living. At the state level, we would like support and get subsidization of the inputs for production and also marketing and sales of the produce. And you can even have national advertisements. We have our national television station and other friendly local channels. And then incentives to facilitate local production and sales. At the state level, very, very important to incorporate and integrate the use of the herbals into the healthcare system. In the education system, we look at the school gardens, and there, in addition to foods, you have herbs. Incorporate them in the school feeding program and home economic classes. You use the herbs and you serve teas. Remember, you can make a tea and then cool it down or just drink it with or without the juice. And build an appreciation and stimulate the tastes and desires for these local foods and herbs. There are some communities where persons survive only on what they grow in their vicinities. In the education system too, we'd like to see our public health education, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, educate persons. And I saw Mr. St. Catherine in his survey really got from the people that they need to see more in terms of health education, health research, so they can know what to do. A lot of people are lost out there and too dependent on sitting in health centers waiting for paracetamol or things they could adjust for themselves while they look at, the wheel of wellness. And Dr. King did put up the chart of the wheel of wellness and wheel of health, wellness. And one needs to be quite aware of what that wheel of wellness is so that it could be executed on a daily basis. Very, very important, we need to educate our health professionals. Because when the persons get to know the goodness of the herbs, they use it, they go to the health practitioners. And because the health practitioners have not been educated and don't know about the herbs, they are too easily telling them don't use it. And this is very, very sad. In fact, creeping into criminality, because it's part of the responsibility of a health professional to be knowledgeable on these basic things that the patients know. So in terms of the education, we want to see it in the curriculum, in the schools, in the agricultural programs, in the farmers' organizations. And here's an appeal, please, please, keep it organic. I know we need all the certification for organic, but towards being organic, let's not poison ourselves with our food and our herbs. So we need some policy imperatives. And these policy imperatives, we need to encourage, implement, and facilitate healthy living means and practices. Remember I say the means because you need to afford it, and the practices to be educated of the practices. Then we need to integrate the herbals into the healthcare system, and we have to look into the import reductions. The food import bill is much too high. And unfortunately, we are lots of times importing poisons, which are making us more ill, waiting for drugs and other medications to put it right. So let's do our own foods, cut down on imports, and keep it organic. More policy imperatives, like I said, introducing the herbals into the National Health Drug Formulary. We need to develop a Caribbean herbal pharmacopoeia. And we need WHO, the World Health Organizations, and PAHO to assist us governments to integrate the herbal medicines into the healthcare system. And PAHO, I know PAHO is ready to intervene to help. But our Ministry of Health need to ask them. They need to ask. They won't just come in and do it. And although, you know, they might be reluctant, but if we ask for it, they will, because it is part of the mandate of WHO, as has been stated in the annual meetings. There are countries like Brazil who have integrated herbal medicines into the healthcare system, and they are ready to assist, but they need to be asked by our government. I lament a few years ago in West St. Lucia, Tourist Board, there was a big trade conference, and Brazil and other countries were here. And Brazil was all ready to assist us, but I tried to get the Ministry of Foreign Affairs just to write a letter, tell them, yes, come, we're ready. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. So these policy imperatives should be put in place and executed so we can get the help we need to integrate the herbal medicine into our healthcare system. So we need incentives by our government, and we need exemptions on import duty on certain things that we don't get here, and also income tax relief. We need assistance with overseas marketing. Let us utilize the foreign embassies and the Lucian associations in the diaspora to help us market our produce here, not just our herbs, but our food. And the people out there, they want the herbs and food. So let our government assist us in making the contact and make it happen. Linkages. So let's look at linkages as we go through this sustainable development project. I'm happy that I am looking at making a link and a partnership with Superior Broom Producers out in Monrepo. I'll tell you of our linkage with Tramel, UWI, OECS, SLDB, healthcare practitioners, and our distribution outlets, and more importantly, you. So let's look at the specific linkages. So Superior Broom Producers out in Monrepo, they're holders of a Global Environmental Fund grant project. And if we work together, then we will expand our production of herbs. And in addition to that, we will be looking at together the sea moss and cassava farine that they already produce. So here's a collaboration that can help us in our upscaling and doing more things for this project. And there will be other expertise that will come with this partnership. I have a linkage with the University of the West Indies Center for Food Security and Entrepreneurship, CFSC, in Barbados with Professor O'Garo, and we are working on some projects with our Eden Herbs products. Our Real Pet project, and Laurent Jean-Pierre did speak of it, our Traditional Medicines of the Islands project, started in '82, and it's a program and network of applied research, traditional popular medicines in the Caribbean, aiming to rationalize health practices based on the use of medicinal plants. And we have developed Caribbean pharmacopoeia, but it needs to be expanded. It has been scientifically validated and gives you the botanical, common names, pharmacology, recommended use, and in particular, the toxicology. So the taxonomy to identify the plant and the toxology to advise on the use. So there's what our electronic ebook looks like. And we are working with 23 Caribbean countries, English, French, Spanish, and their universities and other networks. And they are willing to assist with educational publications. They are more advanced than us in the Spanish and French countries, and they're willing to let us have it for translation, but we need funds for translation. And they can also help us in implementation of the integrative mechanism of herbals into the healthcare system. So this is our Trammel project. the OECS, Organization of East Caribbean States. We have started a dialogue and we need to apply to the OECS pharmaceutical procurement services to get herbals integrated into the national health formularies. We are familiar with the process, but we have to go through the application and make it happen. So we need the cooperation of the OECS to get us legitimately and correctly into the healthcare system. SLDB or other financial institutions, we're looking to get assistance with a prospectus. And then we need the structuring for issuing of shares because we want to create a public liability company where persons will be given shares. And then we will be needing capital for upscaling of business activities and infrastructure. And I was happy to hear from Dr. Nurse, that's Alpha Lewis Community College has a department, not only a lab for innovation, but also for upscaling. So although I didn't have you when I made this presentation as being part of our linkage, we surely can do some talking because we need to upscale our operations. Thank you very much in advance. Then in terms of distribution, some of you may have heard of Karen Roseman. He is the one that was the entrepreneur a few years ago, a young manufacturer of the year in his virgin coconut oil. So he approached me because he wanted to create a platform on Amazon stores, and we're almost near there. By the end of the month, we'll be launching the trademark of Eden Herbs and be able to use Amazon as a sales platform. In addition to that, we can be doing white labeling, so we can look at other products from here or wherever that we see that we want to market and do the white labeling. So we'll label it of Eden Herbs to put on our Amazon sales platform. So looking at the specific linkages again, and we're looking at you. So we'll go through your healthcare practitioners. So everybody has a healthcare practitioner. So this is why we want to educate our healthcare practitioners on our Eden Herbs products so that they can work with you while you use the products if you're on any other medication or want to discuss any particular health problem. We are already in the local pharmacies, we are already in the major supermarkets. We have some direct sales representatives, and we need many more direct sales representatives. And then we see that we have the young entrepreneurs, you know, in agriculture and elsewhere. So there are opportunities for entrepreneurship as direct sales representatives with our Eden Herbs products. And you the people who will be in the Eden Herbs family, there's a concept of social marketing. Social marketing. Share your healing experience when using the Eden Herbs products with others. Because you'll find that the marketing of our products is everybody's business and everybody can pass the word around. It can be very effective. Marketing being everybody's business. So here for you, Eden Herbs ready to expand into a public company, issue shares, work with you, give you good incentives, be a good organized structure for you, family, and friends. So here's for innovation. So you're invited. You're invited to link with us to do this together. May God bless you and give you the grace and wisdom to do the right things. Let us do it together as an Eden Herbs family. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. St. Rose, on this comprehensive bit of information on conventional and local medicines. Right now we will zoom to Mr. Kagan Mayers, and he will speak on smart agriculture. We'll join him via Zoom.
Good day. I would like to adopt the protocols established and like to thank Giles and the team for presenting another knowledge fair. So I know time is limited, so allow me to be quick. I believe for the most part, people are aware of smart agriculture, the idea of bringing technology and innovation into the agricultural space to improve yield and improve market response. And my name is Keegan Mears. I am the chief grower and proprietor of Nature's Key. It's an organic farming lager. And I'm also the agricultural lead for an agrotech company called Guru. Thank you, Mr. Ogier. You actually gave us a nice bit of PR there. We have launched the market platform in conjunction with Massey for the beta run. But however, let me take a step back and let me, in a sense, give the story of how this evolves to show that we are an anomaly and not the rule, and therein lies the problem. In 2016, I charted this platform and I took it to the Ministry of Agriculture. And I'm not knocking any government exactly, but I just want us to understand, just get some context here. So we spent 6 months hashing out how this could work. After 6 months, I was basically ghosted. No more return calls, no one returning the emails. And I stopped. At that point in time, I called it the One Market Initiative. Shortly after that, I just continued back on my farming, but the issue here with lack of data and a disconnect between the producers and the consumers and the buyers was still a huge factor, still is a huge factor in agriculture. So I met with a former school friend of mine and now my business partner, Jade. And so we came up, okay, we're going to do Guru, we're going to do this agrotech company, and this is going to be one of the things. Another part of it was actually developing a system that would respond to climate change, a growing system. So we're also doing a climate smart greenhouse. So we're going to add a lot of the sensors in there and everything so that you get an understand. So the farmer can actually get the information and have basically in his hand a agricultural engineer to help him through his growing process. So 2016 ended, nothing. And then we're moving forward to about 2017 and we pitched this and Jeff has picked this up and we're going through, and now we're in 2020 and how fortunate we have a beta run of this market platform with Massey running it. We have interest in Grenada, we have interest in Dominica, and we have actually had initial conversations with the OECS on this. And that is a wonderful thing to happen. I'm not trying to take away from that, but the backstory to all of this is the fact that I've had to spend on the project alone, over about $60,000 in my own money. I've had a family that has backed me. I've had to do some rather extraordinary things to make it through. There have been many doors shut along the way. And the problem here is that we live in a country that doesn't have the capacity to support. It does not support research and innovation. It does not support entrepreneurs. I'm still actually now currently haggling with a bank to get some additional funding because the drought and all this rain has basically wiped the farm out. So we went from a position of earning about $1,200 a week to spending everything to try to stay afloat. And you really don't have the access to funding. And we have encouragement. And I know here today we have a wonderful opportunity to proselytize, and we're trying to assume to convert people to the understanding of the importance of research and innovation. But at the same time, to all of us here who are doing this, there's also the truth that faith does not pay the bills. But to the institutions, to the government, to all the bodies who have purported to help, but can't and find reason not to, doubt will equally not save us at all. The longer we wait is the more desperate things become. The longer we wait, we become the ones last to adopt, the last adopters, and then we're always behind. St. Lucia suffers from an over $350 million leak of funds. That's for our foods import. The Caribbean suffers from one that's about $4 to $6 billion US a year. That's a lot of money that's just leaving the Caribbean, and we can do something about it. Yes, we do need data, and so I'm thankful that this system is being adopted. And yes, we do need to do better, have better farming practices, and I'm thankful for that too. But at the same time, I can give you at least 4 concrete ways of doing different projects in, say, St. Lucia and the Caribbean that can help fisheries. It can help with Mr. McDoom was talking about desilting, for us not to have to do desilting, so which means that we can have better seagrass beds, we can help the pelagic species, our coral reefs, and our entire fisheries. But now, how does that work? How am I able to go ahead and do that? Because remember, there are going to be bills to pay. There is going to be a life to lead. And how am I going to afford to do that? Because even if, I'm thankful for Jeff, I'm not saying no, but even when we do this and we get funding for all the technical support, it doesn't actually fund everything. And then how do you access that funding? Can I go to a bank? Is there a relationship that we have currently to say, okay, you have this Jeff funding, go to this place, and then now you can get a line of credit so that can assist you? No, we don't. We have projects that are magnificent projects, like Invictus with the water. And does that actually have a government stamp of approval to say that this is what needs to be done and this is how we're moving forward? No, it doesn't. So they have to do a whole lot of work trying to push themselves and trying to push that to be successful. Now, the rate of technology adoption, somebody could see that and take it maybe 5 years down the line, because technology actually grows quite quickly, who has more money, and then they have a profitable business. And yet still, the genius of this is just sitting here in St. Lucia, trying to get through and trying to get by. Research and innovation, it's beautiful. And it's wonderful that we can sit here and discuss all the challenges. But the question still becomes, what are we doing about it? Are we actually going to go ahead, sit down and produce actual results by having good action, by ensuring that everything that's needed, the capacity that's needed for these wonderful minds is there? Because even if we went ahead and did everything in education right, we still will have a massive gap because there's no system for them to plug into for them to take it out. I am, yes, an anomaly, but the problem is I should be the rule. The rule shouldn't be that most of us just have to end up getting a 9-to-5 job and just forgetting our dreams. That shouldn't be the rule. And that's what we face. Thank you.
Thank you much, Mr. Mayers. We'll just make a slight change to our program. We were expecting to hear from Dr. Sarah Maston, as you will see on your program, but she is unfortunately not well and won't be joining us. And in place of this, we would like to have some brief remarks from the Global Manager for GEF SGP UNDP, Ms. Yoko Watanabe.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the flexibility. I was supposed to make the remark after these presentations, but there was a conflict. Thank you very much. Conflict with other meetings. I'm glad that I'll be able to make this remark now. And thank you very much for the organizers and chairs for this opportunity. To start with, Honorable Alan Chastanet, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Gail Rigobert, Minister of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations, and Sustainable Development, luminaries from the St. Lucian diaspora and from within St. Lucia, all members of the Small Grants Program National Steering Committee, and grantees of the GEF Small Grants Program in St. Lucia, and colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yoko Watanabe, and I'm the Global Manager of the Global Environment Facilities Small Grants Program, which is implemented by United Nations Development Program. As I begin this short address, allow me to congratulate the government and people of St. Lucia for convening the People's Parliament in the Parliamentary Chamber of St. Lucia, The location and importance placed to this event by the government and other stakeholders represent St. Lucia's striving leadership and strong leadership and commitment in placing people at the center of sustainable development, which is also at the heart of sustainable development goals, and having a truly inclusive approach. It is not surprising that such innovative and highly recognized event is happening in St. Lucia, the Helen of West Indies, with the most Nobel Prize winners per capita, as you have been highlighting over the days today. I also want to recognize our own Giles Lomeris, one of the most innovative and experienced national coordinators of Small Grants Program, as well as Anele and his team that has made this event a reality with strong coordination and support from all partners. As we pause to reflect on 2020, the ongoing crisis of COVID-19 pandemic reminds us of what many already knew too well, of the fractured relationship between nature, health, and well-being. Up here in New York, we, like you, are buffeted with these impacts of coronavirus to the economy, society, and health system. Epidemics and pandemics are about more than pathogens. They are about inequalities and global imbalances in the socio-ecological system and landscape which pathogens take root. The impact of COVID is most hard hit among the poor and the vulnerable populations, as you see also in St. Lucia. While a medicinal vaccine to COVID will be the critical immediate step, a nature-based vaccine with enhanced landscape and seascape resilience, meaning a healthy ecosystem, is needed through innovation and actions from the bottom up and from the local communities to address the underlying drivers of pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, under this context, I wish to note that the Small Grants Program in St. Lucia is doing exactly that, spearheading its way among our global program in promoting and nurturing innovative solutions, as we've been talking the whole morning and afternoon, with local communities, particularly among the vulnerable populations, including women, youth, persons with disability, in addressing the immense global environmental challenge that we face today, including biodiversity loss, climate change, and more. During the 7th operational program of the Small Grants Program, we are seeking to further operational innovation in our program. As you've been talking, research and innovation is not only of the domain of the academic or private sector, but it is concerned to all, and the local communities indeed hold rich traditional knowledge and innovative ideas that should be supported and scaled up. The Small Grants Program is well positioned to take the risk to test and support these innovations from the local communities, including both traditional knowledge and modern science and tools, with a focus on innovation, inclusion, and impact. The Small Grants Program aims to have larger influence and results at the local and national and global levels. The ongoing SGP partner with Microsoft that Daisuke just informed about is one of the many that we are driving for the commitment for innovation. And this is one reason why I have introduced our friends at Microsoft to the St. Lucia program and apply Internet of Things and Solution Accelerator, an open platform to tackle issues related to wildlife, fisheries, agriculture, and many more by effectively collecting and analyzing data for actions. I am so excited with the progress we have made between the Microsoft and St. Lucia program. Under this program, as we just heard from Laura, St. Lucia is working on its first smart fish aggregating device, which will provide the food security, addressing impact for climate change, and marine science research. We're also working on sensor-controlled greenhouse, which Kagan just mentioned, for food production, and also integrating technology into apiculture, as Richard just mentioned. The demonstration and lessons learned from the St. Lucia Country Program will be shared widely with our network and expected to expand and scale up globally. With a focus on innovation, as well as actively engaged in South-South cooperation between St. Lucia and Pacific and many other countries in Latin America and Caribbean, St. Lucia Country Program is blazing the trail and showing pioneer spirit on what and how we can work further with local communities, together with local entrepreneurs and governments in addressing global environment and sustainable development issue. Let me end by once again congratulate the government of people of St. Lucia for consenting to have this event. I also take this opportunity to thank the luminaries for your participation. It's been enlightening to hear your stories. I'm sure this is a commencement of a bridge to significant exchange and progress for a truly innovative and inclusive approach for sustainable development in St. Lucia and beyond, and we're really looking forward to our further collaboration. I also want to extend our particular gratitude to the Caribbean Youth Environment Network for a very successful Knowledge Fair 2020-21. Above all, our sincere compliments and gratitude to many of the SGP National Steering Committee who are present today, who give their time and expertise so willingly with their dedication and commitment. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for this opportunity and all the very, very, very best for the reminder of the conference today. Thank you again.
So much. It was good to hear from you for these words of hope and very positive feedback from you. Thank you again. We continue for our speakers, and we'll call on Mr. Vincent Boland. I think he was here with us earlier today, but he has moved on to Zoom. Are you there, Mr. Boland?
I am. Can you hear me? So, good afternoon, everyone. Let me adopt the protocol that has been established, and then say thank you very much to the persons who put this whole program together, particularly Mr. Giles Romulus. We do appreciate you pulling all parties together to have this very vital, informative discussion that we are having today. Can I share my screen with you, please? So this afternoon, we wanted to be able to, I heard, during the course of the day, a number of speakers indicating where are the funds? Where is the money? And, we have to understand that we are a small island state, and the government has, very limited space in terms of their fiscal space, and we have to utilize the resources that we have. We have seen that we have a huge, vast resource of intellectual capital, particularly by the number of luminaries who have spoken today, as well as other persons, our Nobel laureates, etc. So we know that there is potential for us to be able to rise and fly and use all our wings, like Mr. Romulus has indicated on a few occasions. But if we think of the SLDBs, before I speak to the SLDB's mandate, I want to just indicate that innovation to us, similar to what Dr. King spoke of this morning, is really looking at solutions to a problem. But at the same time, understanding that according to the Bible, there is nothing new under the sun, that everything really has, is there for us to bring to the fore, for us to utilize all the resources and skills that we have to be able to bring it to the fore. I also wanted to share a quote by Sir Arthur Lewis, where he indicated that the collective judgment of new ideas is so often wrong that it is arguable that progress depends on individuals being free to back their own judgment despite collective disapproval. And when you think of, persons who, for instance, who spoke earlier this morning, Mr. Callis Noel, when he was faced with the challenge to come up with a solution, a lot of people may have said, well, no, you're crazy, that can't work. But here, months later, we have our, the mobile desalination plants. We also have young entrepreneurs, Mr. Dujon, for example. He, when first people would have said that's not possible to make fertilizer from the sargassum seaweed. But again, he's on the shelf, so much so that he was listed on the Forbes under 40 top 40 people in the world. So these are things that are quite within our capability. The challenge that we are seeing, though, is that financing is not flowing to high priority projects in vulnerable countries. And this was identified by our colleagues at the Global Green Growth Institute. And they have decided to really, take the bull by the horn to see how best they can make that change, to be in a position to get access to financing and to be able to make projects or bring bankable projects. That's one of the things that even we at the bank have challenges with where persons have great ideas, and we are now trying to see how best, and you will see that in our priorities, how best we then can move from doing research to the innovation. When we talk about innovation and the research, we look at it from two perspectives, one internally and externally. As a bank, we have to look internally to be able to come up with our strategic plan and look at our key priority areas and to be able to facilitate the access to credit within our existing environment. How do we do that? Well, like any other business that has to do a strategic plan, we would look at our current situation, we would scan our environment, we would come up with our key priorities, and then we would start an implementation program. Some of it may require for us to look closely at our human resource skills and also our actual plant and equipment. And we have found that, when you look at a financial plan, especially for a development bank, that the priority may not necessarily be profits, but in most cases it's impact, and seeing how best we could impact the key priority areas that would have been identified. What's the end game? In terms of our objectives, our plan, our strategy, our priorities, we have to look to see how best we can align these with the government's focus. Because we don't want to be pulling in different directions. We want to be able to facilitate the directions set by the government, to be able to see the expansion of credit and to allow persons, particularly the vulnerable, to improve on their well-being through access to finance. One of the key areas that the bank has looked at is resilience and being able to build resilience in everything that we do. We want to be able to make the entity, the St. Lucia Development Bank, more resilient. And by doing so, it will then cause other persons within our society to also follow suit. Because once we are strong enough, we'll be able to finance and support the projects. The Development Bank prides itself on being able to provide technical assistance in all of the areas in which it undertakes to serve the community. We look at seeing how we can make persons resilient from their household perspective. And that's one of the things that you would have seen. We have adopted the Climate Adaptation Financing Facility, which is a loan facility for eligible households and businesses to increase resilience in disaster and climate change impacts. And most recently, as of Friday, we had a relaunching of what we would call the new CAF, the Business Recovery Program. And this now has taken into the consideration the impact of COVID on the small and medium-sized businesses. It's a pilot program that the World Bank was running, and they provided $5 million for us to be able to run the program. Ideally, it looks at activities to strengthen the household, but it also takes into consideration looking at the agriculture sector in particular to see how we could strengthen the farmers and to be able to facilitate them in having their produce brought to market in the most efficient way. We also looked at infrastructure development, something that's key. And, from our perspective, we want to be able to see a holistic urban development plan, a land use plan, so that it will allow for us to be able to identify the key areas that must be kept in agriculture, the areas that we know that as we expand in terms of the population and the need for housing, that we can have homes built in areas that would be a we would avoid the flood-prone areas of St. Lucia, the landslide areas, and to allow persons to traverse to and from their homes as safely as possible. Where are we now? These are the questions that we start to look at when we start to do the research. Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? How will we monitor our progress? And what are we going to do? Who is going to do what? We have had a number of consultations in that we recently completed our strategic plan, which was to help through the assistance of Dr. Harvey Miller. And with that, we engage persons from throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia. In conjunction with doing our strategic plan, we were also able to do a gender policy and action plan, where even the likes of Mrs. Seeley was with us and gave her input so that we could have input that into our plan to know all what we have to do to address the gender equality. It's a work in progress. It's not complete. We have the plan, but we're now moving to the implementation stage, which will see us addressing some of the issues that Mrs. Seeley spoke about earlier in terms of gender inequality and having our products focused to permit persons to have access to credit that maybe traditionally they won't. But just to be clear, the development bank was considered as being very gender neutral, meaning that we have almost an equal balance of financing facilities to women and men. Some product sectors, we do have an imbalance, and these are the areas that we will be looking closely at. In terms of dealing with our end game in resilience, as I mentioned, we have facilities that will look at improvements in agriculture. We look at how we'll be able to improve households and how we'll be able to facilitate improvements in the manufacturing sector. We've seen where financing for all of the latest technology using greenhouses. We are forming a collaboration with Guru, Jade Hutchinson and his team for us to be able to facilitate the easy rollout of technology within the agriculture field, where we provide financing for the drought and disease-resistant crop. We're looking at soil stabilization and greenhouses. All of these areas for us to be able to assist businesses and individuals to achieve their goals. The climate adaptation facility, I mentioned that. In terms of agricultural focus, part of our research that we had done recently through the World Bank and their funding that they have provided to us via the CAF, we had Dr. Felix Jaria do a comprehensive review of persons within the agriculture sector. Both we held consultations in the north and in the south with farmers and also many stakeholders. And some of the things that he identified that there's a need for intervention, particularly in the post-COVID world, where we will need to see persons storing a lot more of their produce, because if the hotels are not available for the offtake of their produce, we will need to store it, to be able to process it, to be able to use it at a later date. We're also trying to see how best we could improve in the technology and communication, where we have seen recently the launching of a number of platforms for farmers to be able to indicate that their produce, what produce they expect to grow, and by when, the yields, and so that they could have a more standardized approach to their farming. We have seen recently where the St. Lucia Marketing Board has entered into contracts with a number of farmers to be able to say, okay, let me see how I can guarantee you a market, and therefore you will produce what we are asking for. And all of this is looking at, one, improving on our food security, as well as reducing our food import bill. We have seen where there's a need for greater investment in agriculture to become self-sufficient in a few critical crops to begin to address the issue of the same food security, as I mentioned, and also to look at an aggressive backyard farming initiative. You would have seen with the rollout of the new CAF product, Business Recovery Program, that we are trying to incentivize persons in the form of a grant and loan so that they can undertake backyard farming for themselves so as to make themselves more self-sufficient and resilient. What we have seen is that there's a need for us to use technology in terms of drones and also to develop a national agro-processing industry. And we are extremely happy to hear when they indicated that the facility in Grace for the beekeepers will be operationalized very soon. Some of the research that he conducted indicated, the different places and areas that we have under cultivation now for the 7th crop that the government has identified, and the need for us to see how best we can improve and increase on the level of the acreage that is currently under cultivation. So, when we look closely at the research side of it, it's something that banks continually do. They want to be able to understand. That's why all banks, you'll find that there's a credit risk analyst, a risk analyst. Most of the bigger banks have economists that provide them with information that they can then take that and analyze it. And that's one of the key things that we're seeing recently in terms of data analytics, where we're able to pinpoint what the customer is looking for and to be able to see how best we can facilitate them. In terms of the information coming out of our gender mainstreaming, we were able to indicate that the need to develop female customers who own small businesses to access bridge financing to implement bigger contracts. So in terms of our contractors who are doing the infrastructure work that I mentioned earlier, it's right now dominated by men. And there is a need for us to see how best we can enhance the access to these funds and financing by more female contractors. And that's going to be done through a process of us looking at entrepreneurial training and youth training, as well as outreach to rural areas to see how we could identify the unmet needs of those persons who will be able to access the funding. Some of the game changers that we're actually looking at, that it will take some time, but we are looking to implement a green affordable housing program. And this will see us aligned with the National Housing Corporation, the Ministry of Housing, the National Insurance Corporation, Invest St. Lucia, and the St. Lucia Mortgage Finance Company. And ideally, it would be to ensure that there are sufficient energy savings in the new buildings that we construct. There's sufficient water storage and savings that we want to be able to ensure that all new constructions have, and also even the materials used to ensure that we are not, causing an increase in our overall gas emissions and so on. We're also looking at the financial structure. But before we get there, we're also looking to see how we could empower the youth and to mobilize resource centers that we have throughout St. Lucia, where we can train persons in carpentry, masonry, electricians, and have them certified. There is a certification that is being done by the International Financial Corporation called EDGE, which ensures that your project, your product that you have in terms of your construction is now certified as being a green project. So if we train those persons and mobilize the young people, we will be, or even the unemployed, we saw that our unemployment rate had reached 29% now. If we're able to establish these centers where people can be retrained and now move into new sectors, or in a sector that they worked in, but maybe at a hotel, but now they can work for themselves. We are looking to see how best we can modify the ownership structure for more persons to access affordable housing. This is something that we are working on, that we will be rolling out shortly. We are also in discussions in the creation of an investment fund. I saw where Dr. Gilbertha indicated the need for us to have that. And we are looking very closely, because one of the things that we have identified is the need for the bank to have a greater level of capitalization so that it can undertake larger projects and do all of the things that we have planned. We want to be able to lead on some of the PPPs and privatization that we see as necessary. Our colleagues at the bank, the Development Bank of Jamaica, they created a unit specifically to assist the government of Jamaica with the privatization and or forming PPPs for their statutory bodies. The Jamaicans had 32 statutory bodies that were in deplorable conditions. And when I read the information, they're not very far from a few of the entities that we do have in St. Lucia that have traditionally been supported through the government. They have come up with a program which transparently allows for those entities now to become more efficient. Either they become efficiently still under the control of the government, or they become privatized, which will then see a more efficient operation based on the profit motive. One of the things that we are working on, we have partnered with Invest St. Lucia in the creation of an entrepreneur hub. Right now, the virtual platform is called Boost, and I encourage persons to go there and direct persons there, because it's really an interactive platform that allows the entrepreneur or the potential entrepreneur to be trained, to have access to information, and or to meet his peers and other colleagues who may give him some information that will lead him on his way. In terms of our linkages and linking our priorities to the projects, we have collaborated, as I indicated, with the World Bank and the Climate Investment Fund. We are working closely with CDB. We are moving forward with both CDF and ECCB in terms of their credit enhancement programs. The CDF, the CARICOM Development Fund, have created the Credit Risk Abatement Facility, which is providing a credit guarantee for persons looking to access renewable and energy efficient projects, and they are lacking the sufficient collateral to be able to do so. Similarly, the ECCB has invited the Development Bank to be a part of the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Program that will again allow us to facilitate persons who need to have access to credit but don't have the sufficient collateral to do so. We are also working with GET Invest, which is a part of an agency from the European Commission, and they're assisting us in our approach to the Green Climate Fund with a concept paper. We are also working with the Green Climate Fund towards accreditation and are undergoing a gap assessment as we speak. And we're hoping to have the accreditation sometime, hopefully in the new year. We are also looking to partner with the Global Green Growth Institute, GGGI, who are working closely with the OECS in ensuring that entities have access to financing and can develop bankable projects. Locally, we are working with all agencies, the SBDC, the Small Business Development Unit, the South Louis Community College, the Invest St. Lucia, Export St. Lucia, the National Skills Development Center. These are all partners who work with us to achieve the socioeconomic development of the people of St. Lucia. We are also in the process of working with, and I think Mr. Luisi mentioned, the German Savings Foundation, who are partnering with us to do the design thinking courses. So they have trained us, as well as I think members of the chamber, to be able to look and see how we can get persons to have the bankable project, have the business that they want to start, other than moving from just the idea to having a solid business footing. And that's where we are seeing the research that needs to be done, because some persons, when they do enter the doors, they have the idea, but they may not have thought through all of the processes. The Development Bank stands ready to be able to facilitate persons in being able to access credit and to move from research to innovation. We continue to applaud Mr. Giles Romulus and the small grants program, and we continue to provide our support. Thank you very much.
Mr. Boland, I'm sure many people will be very interested to see how the new approaches by the bank works out for them. At this time, we call on Mr. or Dr. Linus Clovis. Move on to Ms. Anya Edwin, who will speak on the interests of youth.
I extend warm greetings to the representatives at this blended forum on behalf of the executive of the St. Lucia National Youth Council and its membership, the young people of this fair Helen. The Global Environment Fund Small Grants Program has displayed great resilience by adapting and remodeling this initiative to satisfy national COVID-19 protocols despite major restrictions, and for that I commend them. I stand here today to add to the voices of thousands of young St. Lucians who yearn for a country that will increase investments into the intellectual capacity of its people, particularly the youth. During a dialogue hosted by the United Nations Eastern Caribbean Office on International Youth Day this year, I made a plea for increased investments in the intellectual capacities and skill sets of young people. I then boldly went on to say, with the advent of e-learning, I am hopeful that education can be more affordable for our young people. As cliché as the echo appears to our ears, sound knowledge is indeed power, and my Barbadian colleague, Mr. Chad Monaville, who sat on that same panel with me, unequivocally stated, and I quote, "The Caribbean is home to very well-educated people. Once we can have certified programs that allow persons to have knowledge transferred right across the world, we can increase revenue streams to boost our economies. Certainly, we would not be in our current position if we moved to a knowledge-based economy." Ladies and gentlemen, an investment in research is also direct investment in the knowledge and culture of our people. As the theme suggests, we must strive to inform, educate, and motivate the citizenry to aspire to sustainable futures with awareness on climate change, climate variability, and growing socioeconomic inequalities. One of the ways we intend to achieve this as a multi-stakeholder forum is through the introduction of research and innovation across multiple sectors, from the backyard garden to parliament and beyond. However, how do we expect to achieve these objectives if the very people we are trying to engage are not equally educated and are unfamiliar with the jargon that we so eloquently articulate? How do we expect to inculcate research into our way of life if we have policymakers debating bills right here in this very honorable chamber without first having dialogues and research-driven consultation with the constituents on the genesis of their findings and the implications to citizens today and many generations later? How do we expect the lesser educated caller to the local social commentary show to understand how the $10 million mentioned in the budget is spent if we don't further explain to them that allocations in the annual debate of revenue and expenditure are broad estimates that more or less may not match actual government expenditure? As minor as this may seem, it is the correction of these malpractices that will spur research and innovation that can develop culture, enhance national pride, and promote participatory and inclusive democratic processes. The year 2020 signaled a decade left in which members of the United Nations must achieve the 2030 United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda. With the commencement of this decade, came the exacerbation of the issues which the SDGs seek to address, catalyzed by the ramifications of COVID-19. Hence, we are presented with a golden opportunity to aggressively address the developmental gaps through substantial research mechanisms and innovative and sustainable practices. I want to join Dr. Oje in applauding the likes of Mrs. Delia Fossois, who have taken on the mandate to pursue an alien yet very important culture of having access to books through bookstores and cafes. In the last few months, we noticed the national organization conducting a number of fundraising activities in an effort to raise a few $1,000s to finance a digital library after its former home was engulfed in flames some years ago. The need for the coordination of fundraisers to finance this virtual library, in my belief, is indicative of the lack of importance of the conservation of teaching of our history and lack of appreciation of research by our cultural icons and historians. How often do we measure the significance of our national archives in its current form? We are realizing daily the quick manifestation of the digital revolution, yet our actions are not up to par or in sync with this new era that is upon us. Policymakers, leaders, young people, it is our future, and this is our time to confront the reality of a changing climate and the need to alter our livelihoods, our practices, and our mode of governance to keep St. Lucia ahead of the curve in sustainable development for small island developing states. To get there, we must make the early investments into quantitative and qualitative research, cultivate innovation, and propel resilient mindsets. While we are asked to share our views on what organizations like the St. Lucia National Youth Council can do to infuse research and innovation in all aspects of sustainable development, it is critical to recognize that no one individual or grouping can effectively achieve this in isolation. I believe that it is for this very reason the 17th United Nations Sustainable Development Goal focuses on partnership for the goals. May I suggest 3 of many solutions? 1, practice environmental auditing in schools, such as what was piloted in our Jeff-funded project in 2018, which focused on garbage segregation, electricity, and water conservation. Number 2, grant-funded research projects into investigations on local medicines to promote health tourism and advance economic diversification efforts. And thirdly, coordinated interventions with community-based organizations like the National Youth Council district branches to pilot conservative practices such as rainwater harvesting and backyard gardening to reduce the demand on potable water supply to rural communities and encourage food security and organic farming. In terms of variability, it also means that we must continue to create or work towards educating or creating careers that are aligned with the new reality that we are faced with. Encourage young people to further studies in climate change, sustainable development, and other research and innovative centric and region-specific fields of study. This will assure us that we have St. Lucians equipped within every aspect of our sector to ensure the implementation of sustainable practices in the public and private sectors. With this backdrop, I wish to highlight and commend St. Lucia's youth innovators. Although Dr. Fletcher mentioned a few earlier, I just want to add the Junior Achievement Young Leaders winners and participants over the years, Keegan Patrick, Shagon Rosary, and Divi Frederick from Optronics, who are working towards creating an indelible impact in the field of robotics and artificial intelligence. And there are so much untapped, innovative young talents in the area of arts and culture, ranging from comedy to singing, dancing, sculpting, and the list goes on and on. COVID is a stark reminder of the need for cooperation across borders, sectors, and generations. We must utilize the passion, creativity, innovation, and education and talents of young people at every policy level, including in this very chamber when Parliament is in session, to play an active role in devising sustainable solutions in the development of our country. I wish to end by calling on young people to take advantage of the knowledge presented during this fair and the availability of funding to support your innovative ideas when that time comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing these 3 ideas, and we hope that we will see some satisfaction the next time we come around in terms of their implementation. We move on, and standing by, I would imagine, is Dr. Didicus Jules. He's not here? Okay. Then we move on to Mr. Boo Hingson. He's not there either? Okay, well, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our presentations for today. We've had a lot to cover. We've had a lot of information shared. We see a lot to celebrate. At the same time, we see that we can do so much more in areas that we are not doing as well. So let's give all our speakers a great round of applause, not only for sharing their life stories and so showing us a part of their success, but also because we've gotten even new ideas that we wish to work on as far as innovation, research and innovation are concerned. At this time, we would like to call on Mr. Ember Charles. Ember Charles is here with us. Okay, Ember, good to see you. And we will ask you to give us a summary of today's proceedings.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry. And I'm not too sure if it might be counterproductive to try to do a summary at this point in time, but what I plan to do is to just highlight some of the main threads that came through the presentations today. But just to start by reminding us of the question that was before us this morning, the question of integrating research and innovation into sustainable development. And of course, we have to ask ourselves whether we answer that question today. But in doing that, I think there's the issue of the sustainable development path being followed by our countries, in particular St. Lucia. I think some of the presenters did address the issue of the definition of sustainable development. But what came out was a sort of a picture of the facets or components of that developmental model that we follow. From the economic point of view, we realize in St. Lucia what the main economic activity is now driving us is tourism, and the question is to relate it to research and innovation. Does the focus on that sector really spur a need for research and innovation, especially when you have lots of young people who are going overseas to study, and you ask yourself the reasons why one may not be driven to come back to a country of birth when they have developed certain expertise and certain proficiencies in research. The second issue is the question of governance, and I think that was raised in particular by Dr. Audrey Henry, who said that policy making sometimes is not necessarily driven by evidence. And in fact, she used the example where in our politics, the politicians are more driven by the need to be re-elected. So votes actually is the kind of data they need as opposed to innovation, science, research and development. Then you had the question of education. Our education system, does it facilitate research and innovation? And the current challenges of the education system were highlighted by quite a few speakers. Really, does education reward creativity? Does it reward inquiry? Does it reward research? Or does it reward regurgitation of existing models and practices that students are taught? Does it start early enough to facilitate inquiry? And then, of course, there was the dislocation between what we want to do on our own socio-economic base, whether we have accepted or we continue to deny our bilingualism. And bilingualism was looked at in a more broad sense, not just the language, but the fact that there's a certain element of modernity in our society, plus a deep traditional set of knowledge that sometimes we either forget to accept is there, or we just turn our backs on it. And whether that's is in fact something that is good, that will help us. The picture that was painted was interesting by Dr. St. Catherine, was the sort of baseline research he did, which highlighted some, again, additional challenges facing St. Lucia as we pursue this path of integrating research and development into sustainable, research and innovation into sustainable development. The question is, does research and innovation benefit the poor? I think he had some statistics which said it is not, as people perceived it. There was some kind of doubt over science and the scientific information, and I think what he used was the example of people's perception of the acceptance of a virus, a vaccine for the COVID virus. The further question which needs to be answered is, why was that the prevailing perception of people's appreciation or acceptance of a vaccine? So that's needed for further research. But there was a recognition that research and innovation is actually necessary, and the three areas highlighted were health, education, and agriculture. Of course, the others were highlighted, but these sort of stood out. I think we have to look at that picture against the expectations, and of course the type of setting that the GEF program sets for getting involved in funding or investing in programs at the community level or at the national level. And the expectations are that these programs must be participatory, cost-effective, and of course, the participatory means, of course, some level of consultation is required at all levels. That was, resonates a lot with a lot of the young people who spoke today in their presentations. And there has to be the resurgence of the spirit of giving, the spirit of Kudme, which I think the chair started off when she said her opening remarks this morning. And it has to be inclusive and it has to be decentralized. Our statistics show how you have a heavy percentage of our population stacked to the north and where a lot of the activity is happening. What happens to the rest of the island? So the question is that, did we answer the question based on the presentations? I mean, what we heard, I won't go through all of what we heard, but just sort of pull out a few pointers. It seems quite a long time since Dr. Kito Lawrenson spoke to us, but he set the ball rolling in terms of trying to suggest what might be rewards for efforts at getting young people involved in science and innovation. But I think that has to be juxtaposed against the question which was raised by Dr. King, echoed by Adrian Ogier as well, as the issue of building self-confidence in our people, knowing yourself, knowing your history, and as a result, knowing your self-worth. And perhaps that can be a basis for spurring people to do things that will redound to the benefit of themselves and their own people. The stories we heard from all of these young St. Lucians who are doing research overseas is to overcome these challenges that confronted them. But how to do that, they had to be confident. They had to know who they were, why they were doing what they were doing, and perhaps these are the questions we need to answer as well. We heard that research must address basic needs in our society, must address well-being, must address issues of rights. It has to be transformational. It must address the issues of gender or participation on gender-based participation and the issue of ethics. It must reward creativity. It must lead to change. And also, in the question of the economy, research and innovation is key to business survival, as was presented by the people who are involved in the private sector. In the presentations, looking at some of the innovations, the projects, the services such as the bank, the Eden Herbs, and also I think the presentations presented by Carlis, Invictus and company, you realize that these are platforms for using as examples for what can be done and how collaboration can take place to fund the research. But there has to be a sound policy, a sound infrastructure, a sound ecosystem for research, as was highlighted by Dr. Keithness when he spoke about the disparities in funding of higher education and the sort of percentages required from GDP, relation to GDP, to fund research and innovation for any kind of change to happen. We would know some, for instance, that the World Bank has accepted some of the data coming from some of the academic community and also from other institutions. For example, that if you invest or you expand your broadband by about 10%, it probably leads to a 1 to 2% growth of the growth in the economy. So there has to be an understanding of the relationship between investment in innovation and growth in the economy as well. So the infrastructure, the budgets, the incentives, all of these are necessary. And I think one of the threads resounding was the question of the education system. We need to tackle that. We need to ensure that there's the environment of inquiry from a very, very early age to ensure that people appreciate and research becomes part of the culture of our society. And I think one of the things that resonated with me as well by the examples presented from the young St. Lucians, that we should not be afraid to fail. Jerry?
Yes, Ambert, job well done. Thank you very much. We move now from a summary or highlights of what happened to what will happen next. And we call on the National Coordinator, Mr. Giles Romulus, to lead us there.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Colleagues, let me thank you for being here. It's been a long day, a marathon. Obviously, we underestimated time since we've gone over significantly. And I thank you all for staying the course. Sometimes great things happen with a lot of sacrifice. And I do want to tell you where we go next. All the people in cyberspace, thank you, luminaries, for contributing, both within St. Lucia and outside. The next step, of course, the immediate next step is for our scribes. We have 2 scribes, phenomenal scribes, from South Louis Community College. They'll produce a report, a high quality report from this one-day session. Once that is prepared, finalized, and approved, it will go to our drafting committee. And that drafting committee comprised of Mr. Clinton Springer, Dr. Stephen King, Dr. Ezra Jabatis, myself, and a member of CYEN, Ms. Nalia Mahal. We will pull out of that report what we would like to call a Hiranara Declaration on Research and Innovation. That will be crafted into a kind of synoptic document that will be circulated again around St. Lucia to all organizations, both civil society, government, and the private sector for comments. And we are likely to give anything from a month to 6 weeks to comment and to feedback to us. Once that fed, of course, everybody in here will also receive a copy for comments as well. Once the comments are fed back to us, we'll finalize it, and the idea is to officially submit it to our decision makers and policy makers, not only at the governmental level, but also at the private sector, CSO level as well. We are hoping also to use that declaration to launch a competitive R&I project, and we are going to invite civil society organizations to come up with an idea that has a pair of wings and a landing gear. And Laura, that is what you're missing. A pair of wings and a landing gear. So it could be funded in real time, and we could see the results to improve our country. So this is how we are going to go, and that will take us well into next year. Seeing that we're coming into this Christmas season, I want to wish all of you all a, well, should I say early Merry Christmas to all of you. Peace and goodwill and cheer. For those of you in North America, take care of yourself. We want you to be healthy. Stay away from the COVID. For those in St. Lucia, let's do the same thing. And I wish everybody a pleasant good evening. And I think it's left for me to invite the member of NYC, I think, to move the vote of thanks. And CYEN, sorry. to move the vote of thanks. So thank you again, everybody.
In the interest of time, please permit me to adopt the protocol already established in bidding everyone a pleasant good afternoon. You know, we call this the People's Parliament, and one thing which is without question today is that as small island developing states, our true source of wealth to drive our sustainable development is available right here, in the minds of our people right here, and in the diaspora, and we just need to unleash this. Nonetheless, recognizing the numerous individuals and organizations who have ensured that this People Parliament is not only a reality, but a stepping stone towards a new era in St. Lucia's development, it is with a great degree of alacrity that I deliver the vote of thanks today. Many thanks to our Chair of Proceedings and Chairperson of the JEF SGP UNDP National Steering Committee, Dr. Rosemary Husbands-Mafre, for your welcome remarks, guiding today's activities, and of course ensuring that we didn't deviate too much into the turbulent waters of overtime. Our sincere thanks also to the Deputy Chair of Proceedings, Dame Paulette Louisy, Governor General Emeritus, for gracing us with your presence, and of course, the display of your continued support. To Mr. Jerry George and Ms. Linnell Melizer early on for introducing our outstanding luminaries and presenters, all doing fantastic work in various fields. And certainly we have to thank Mr. Giles Romulus, National Coordinator of the JSSGP, for setting the scene earlier on within the context of research and innovation earlier on this morning. Not forgetting Mr. Edwin St. Catherine for providing certainly, I'd say, very useful baseline results on research and innovation in St. Lucia. I think this was certainly a much needed research, and we certainly look forward to the final report next year. To our luminaries and speakers, both in person and virtually, sharing your experiences, knowledge and suggestions, we were certainly eye-opening and inspiring. And what was truly amazing is that we had such a diverse pool of individuals, from agriculture to apiculture, education, business, health, science, you name it. In fact, in true West Indian fashion, I'd say we have the perfect lineup for successful second innings run chase in innovation against the rest of the world. Special thanks again to Ms. Yoko Watanabe, Global Manager of JEF SGP, UNDP, for your kind words, and reaffirming the commitment of JEF SGP in supporting our nation's journey towards sustainable development. Special thanks again to Mr. Ember Charles for such a succinct report of today's proceedings. Not forgetting JEF SGP and the partnership with the UWI-Open campus, along with the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. After all, your efforts and commitment in ensuring that this year's People Parliament was a reality, as we truly kickstart, or I should say rather catalyze, a new era for research and innovation in St. Lucia in all sectors is so greatly appreciated and will certainly leave a permanent mark in St. Lucia's history down the line. Of course, many thanks to the Office of the Parliament for facilitating use of this venue with immense comfort. Our heartfelt thanks go out to you. And to all, we cannot certainly forget all who joined us via the virtual platforms, whether it be Zoom, Facebook, YouTube. Thank you for your comments and virtual engagement. We are indeed grateful for your taking time off to be part of this People Parliament, wherever you may be in the world. To the media, we thank you for ensuring that today's proceedings reach the St. Lucian audience beyond these chambers, and by extension, the wider world. To our volunteers and all those working behind the scenes in ensuring the events of today went ahead smoothly, our sincere thanks to you. Ladies and gentlemen, à nous continuer supporter avec pousser research et innovation dans cette lycée. Let us continue to support and push forward research and innovation in St. Lucia. Merci appeal. I thank you.
As we have come to the end of our day's journey, I would just like to tell everyone there is lunch available in the same lounge that you had your break, so please grab and go. Please take your lunch package before you leave. Thanks.